make a motion to approve the minutes. It's Guy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Good. So the meetings are approved or the minutes are approved as written. Thank you. Our next meeting will be January 11th, 2021. So can everybody make that?
Yes.
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 No one's escaping to some other climate or something? Okay, so our next meeting will be January 11th, 2021 at 5:30. Let's start off with old business. The design review is on our old business first.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to really talk about, Mary Ann. I just didn't want to take it off the agenda until we had everything resolved. But I think we still need to wrap up with the code office about permitting, et cetera. Our code director, David Riggs, he did mention in our city administrator staff meeting this morning that his staff was working on that for us, and they're aware of it going on, and they're starting to they have maps at the front counter and things like that to provide. They're keeping an eye out for it.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Our next item is the Prizzly Award. And all I can say on that is I've collected, and I will be just writing something very brief as soon as possible, probably right after Christmas, but before our next meeting, I hope to have it done and with the minister for his approval, and I can send it to the board members too, if they would like to see what I've written. And especially to you, Rich, because you were there with me, so I'll send it to you.
Well, if it's
Paul, Cyrus.
Are you going to do something similar to what we were doing for St. Paul's?
Yes, maybe a little bit longer, but yes, very much like that. And I've got some old materials from the church that a church member loaned to me, so I think, I can just put this together. And I'll send it to everyone to look at before we use it. Anything else?
The amount of the length of the text is what determines the size and price. So be brief if you can.
This is something extra that he wanted. This is not going on the plaque.
Oh.
So I think the plaque is just going to be very simple. Isn't that what we decided, Richard?
Well, that was, I think, what we thought. And that the final plaque negotiations with St. Paul's, when we were there, we were contemplating something very short, if I recall.
Yes.
And also to keep both the plaque size down and to make it likely that they will install it in a prominent location on the church.
Right. And then Reverend Martin wanted was just something written about the history, but he has a lot about the history. There's so much. But I'll just put something simple together and send it around for everyone to see.
I'd be interested also to see what you want to do with the plaque.
Actually, we have a suggestion on that. If the minister, one corner of the church about eye level, I think it's the corner facing Court Street, Rich, is that right?
Yes, it was the court right on, virtually at the corner of Court in Washington, on the church building at eye level, would you say, Mary Ann, roughly?
Yes,
There's a nice place there for a plaque. And from our conversations with him, we didn't discuss that location explicitly, but he seemed very accommodating to that as a possible. I mean, I think Mary Ann did too, that it seemed like that should be we should have no trouble getting that done. And I recall, Guy, you had said earlier, and I agreed with you 100%, that it would be very desirable to have this in a location that's fairly prominent so people in the community can see it. And I think that's the plan.
Well, like I always say, buildings with plaques don't get torn down.
That's right.
Good advice. Okay, anybody have anything else to add about this?
Mary Ann, thank you for putting that together. Somebody has to actually come up with the language for the plaque. If you want to fold that into what you're doing as well, that would be great. And also in the minutes, it alluded to having some sort of a press release, some sort of a celebration. We ought to pick a date. When are we going to do this? There are some blanks to fill out in the process. And if we can accomplish any of that tonight, let's do that. For example, when and how do we want to make the award? What kind of a presentation could it possibly be? How long should we wait because of COVID? Open for discussion. I don't have, right this second, I don't have any ideas, or I didn't think this through myself.
I think my opinion was that Reverend Martin wanted to do something about this too so we should probably get with him and discuss it with him before we make any plans.
Can we invite him to our next meeting or a future meeting to discuss it?
Sure, we could do that.
Good idea.
Okay?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Can you do that, Paul? Paul, you're muted for some reason on my... There you go.
Yeah, I didn't want you to have to hear me typing, Pam. I'm happy to reach out to Reverend Moore if
Martin.
Excuse me, Reverend Martin.
Don't call Reverend Moore. He's the one we've already had to.
I just typed Cyrus Moore right before I said Reverend Moore, so that's why.
Many ends.
I'll reach out to Reverend Martin. If I need his email address, I'll contact somebody, but I'm sure I can find it on the church website.
And I will try to get something out to everybody before that you can read. Something brief.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Paul, I assume, Paul, the city's used to ordering plaques for different things. Is that process 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? I mean, how long does it take to get a plaque?
It can take anywhere from, it depends on the style. If it's like a award trophy type plaque mark, you might even have something similar on over your shoulder there. Those we can, something engraved in brass, those can be done pretty quick. But if it's a bronze casting or something, we haven't done one of those in a while, but last time we did those, it took 4 to 6 weeks, I think. There was a foundry out of the Cincinnati area, I think we worked with last.
If you Google bronze plaques, everybody comes up, because I was dealing with 2 people on that one. We were doing the other one, but again, it's the how much is written in it is what takes up all the size, and it doesn't take long to make it be pretty big and expensive.
Well, I think what we had for St. Paul's was just very simple, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And I'd like to keep it that way for... By the way, I don't think we mentioned that on the corner, the National Register of Historic Places plaque is on one corner of the church. This would be, the Presbyterian church. And we want ours on the other. So even if we did it very plain, like the National Register plaques, it would be fine, I think.
Yes, I agree. Just like those plaques, they're wonderful.
They are, I agree.
But Paul, that gets handed back to you at the point we have our language ready to go, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll be able to, we'll double check the budget. I know the budget that the mayor requested included funding for the Prizzly Award for the Preservation Board. I'll double check how much we have in there. And yeah, once we have language, we can get that moving and start put in an order or an invoice and get it shipped here. I think last time we did them, my recollection is that I think a bigger cost was the shipping when all was said and done. We ordered like 15 or 20 of them at once for some benches uptown. And the weight was so much that they tacked on a lot of surcharges or something like that. But it took about a month, I think, from order to delivery.
Okay. Maybe some of us would actually go to Cincinnati and pick it up if we had to.
Yeah. Anything to get out of town for a day.
Right.
Or out of the house.
Out of the house, yes. Oh. Okay, so is there anything else to add about the plaque or the Prizzly Award?
Are you thinking we should really have the minister come? I just think we should have a lot more accomplished rather than us asking a bunch of questions and then us agreeing to things that we can't do. Can we just postpone that for one meeting? Does it make sense so we can get our ducks in a row?
I think so, Guy. And we talked about a press release. We could wait for Marianne's paper on the history of the building. We could have the language of the plaque prepared. We could have the press release drafted and then present that in advance to the Reverend, and then ask him if he wants to come to the meeting to discuss any details. He's more than welcome. I think by the next meeting, maybe we could have those three things done so we could then pass it on to him. And then the following meeting in February, if he wanted to come to discuss anything, he could discuss it. And if he wanted to have any kind of a physical presentation, for me, and I'm pretty conservative with COVID, that's very problematic. And that's where I stop in my imagination, is I really can't figure out, what do we do? Put it down and then walk away, and then somebody sprays it with alcohol and picks it up, and what craziness would have to happen in order to do something physically? What's his expectation? But I agree with you, Guy.
Okay, I'll try to get things to you way before then, and this is not going to be any long, lengthy tome that I'm doing. It's going to be pretty simple because there's so much already written about the church.
I know they're quite proud of their stained glass windows. There's a lot of documentation on what that's all about.
Yes, there is. And we should include some of that, I guess, but not much because it's already been done.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is not rewrite everything that's been done about the church, but just, I actually borrowed a book. It's from the turn of the last century about the church, and it's really nice. Well, not the turn of the last century, but the early 20th century that someone loaned to me, and it's really got a lot of history and a lot of pictures too. So,
I'm sorry, what are we writing this for? Because it's not going to be on the plaque. Is it for a brochure, for a handout? Is it for the press release?
The minister just wanted a short history that we would put together, and I suppose why we're giving the plaque too. So that should be in there as well.
And that they're the first. This is the first award, which I think is significant.
Marianne, I would point out that Charles Ping, who is an ordained Presbyterian minister, and gave a presentation to the church on its history at a sermon about 10 years ago, might be willing, although he's in frail health, to give a very short oral tape recording kind of thing that we could use in conjunction with that. It might be worth thinking about. He's in fragile health, and he is about ready to celebrate his 90th birthday, I think. I talked to him the other day. He sounded fine on the phone. His mind is perfect. Well, I say perfect. Whose mind is perfect? But it's relatively, it's probably at least the average of the board of the Athens Historical Preservation Commission. And it's something we might want to think of doing. It would be, I think the church would like it, and he's well regarded in the community. And I'm pretty sure I could talk him into doing it if no one else could. So, because I'm a pretty good friend of his. Just a thought.
I think that's wonderful. And again, I think a lot depends on Reverend Martin when he wants concerns about COVID too, because they aren't even having church services at this point.
Yep.
And I don't know how we're going to do this, but we'll sort of let him decide. But I think that's a marvelous idea to have Dr. Ping come.
I don't know if we can get him to, we may not be able to get him to come. We may be able to. We might have to go out to his house and just record something.
The tape recording, that would be great. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Okay, so we'll invite the minister for February's meeting?
I hope so, yes.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. We'll get our ducks in a row, as we say. That's a good idea. Okay. And then we have new business to talk about, and the first item on that is the ridges. And I guess Pam and Paul, are you two on the committee with the ridges, or?
Right. I am on the Ridges Advisory Board, and I am a community member, community representative for that board. We met a couple of weeks ago and had an update from the university on status of the ridges, and there's some pretty interesting things to convey to you. And then subsequent to that, I was invited to be on a panel to discuss the ridges with the development arm of the university and the alumni, and it was quite well attended. It was virtual, and we talked about the ridges and needs of the ridges and also the accomplishments that have been achieved at the ridges. For us, I think that you should be comforted to know that the university still holds the ridges' historical significance in high regard.
Good.
That is clear. There is one very disturbing situation that I need to bring to your attention, but by and large, the university is continuing to refer to and to appreciate the significance of the buildings, the architecture. As far as the land is concerned, they're also very aware of the community relationship to the acreage that's up there, specifically the acreage that includes Radar Hill, as opposed to the acreage that's on the other side of the street on Dairy Lane behind the dairy barn. And they understand that a lot of community members walk there and seek refuge there and get out of the house by going to the ridges. And toward that end, they've created a number, or I think the Desire Cast have created them, but they are now improving some of the trails that have been created in that acreage. And they've also received a grant to buy signage to instruct people on where to go and what the sort of rules of certain areas are, because it is part of it is a land laboratory for the botany biology people. And they hired Hilferty Associates to do that design. They had examples of what that design would look like. They're very handsome. I talked to them about design pollution and not going too far, and they seem to be sensitive to that. They also have incorporated in the museum a natural history museum arm of the Kennedy Museum. There's always been the fine arts arm and the Native American arm of the museum. And now there's a very bona fide and also endowed arm for natural history. And that includes some collection from, oh gosh, and I didn't write it down, so I don't remember it to tell you, but it sounded relatively significant, that was given to the university as sort of the seed of this natural history arm. And they're thinking, at least what I sensed was that they were thinking combining the community use of the ridges through walking and hiking and all that trail with this natural history arm where the flora and the fauna would be described and there would be an educational area to it. So I felt real good for my role in the board because the community, the people that have come to me from the community about the ridges have all almost exclusively been, we don't want to be shut out from the university. We don't want a developer to come in there, build fancy houses or not fancy houses up on Radar Hill and up all through that acreage and put a gate there that says you can't walk there anymore. We want to be able to have access to that land, like parkland. And for the moment, that seems to be the direction in which everyone's going at the university. The one disturbing thing about the meeting were photographs of the buildings 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4 are the wings to the west, or as you're standing looking at the museum, you have to do this, as you're looking at the museum to the right of the museum, they're unoccupied, right? These are the old wings that haven't been occupied since 1970s. The roof, they did a remedial project there, a mothballing project there 10 years ago that is failing as expected. And the roof on those wings 2, 3, and 4 is completely failing. And there are really large gaping holes that are holes. So there's a threat to those wings. As an architect, and David, my husband, looked in those photographs as well, they're very repairable at this point. The university's gotten estimates for cost of repair for that kind of stuff. It's about $1 million. They don't have the money. They have not identified the money. The buildings themselves, they're not in, and I don't, because they're masonry and the floors are concrete, there's a little bit of wiggle room for how long they can endure this kind of abuse from the elements before they really deteriorate to a point where they're not repairable. So that's a good thing. The board, Chris Knisley's on the board, and she is drafting a letter to the president and the board of trustees expressing our board, the advisory board, concern with that roof situation on those wings and stressing the importance of the historic importance of that main building. We have all of a sudden a meeting popped up, I think, for Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning with the vice president for finance to discuss maybe some particulars, or maybe they don't want us to send a letter. We haven't sent the letter yet. So there's a lobby out there, and we are the lobby and part of the lobby. And I was wondering whether this group wanted to participate in that lobby as well. Here's one thing that happened. When I had a dry run of this panel discussion with the alumni, the development office, and I said, it was the first time I met President Nellis, and I said, oh, I'm so excited to meet you. I wanted to meet you for so long. And then I said, well, before we really get into this dry run, I want to thank you, university, for all of the effort that you have made since 1988 to preserve that which you have preserved at the Ridges, and that which you have invested in the Ridges, and that regard which you have had for the Ridges, and that amount of effort and time you have in the stewardship of the Ridges. And I felt from the response, I think it was somebody said, oh, I'm tearing up, but from the response from the group, because I said, now I don't have to say that in the panel discussion, and immediately Nellis said, oh, please do. Please do. Please say that. I think they really are struggling, and they're happy, or they're so anxious to have good things said and good things to happen. So anyhow, the letter that I was thinking that we could, as a body, draft for them, could thank them for that same thing, for the work that has been done, and how wonderful the Voinovich Center is, and how carefully done the auditorium was, and how fantastic that they have that Conacher Center and the daycare center, and who would have thunk a daycare center and a horse barn, etc., and the hiking and the community and all that stuff. And then hit them with how critical the preservation of those wings 2, 3, and 4 are to the whole essence of that place, and how scrutiny of every maintenance dollar that goes in there needs to be made so that you're not putting money where you really shouldn't put money. You should be putting money in that priority. At least that's my perspective, and I didn't know if the group felt maybe that was our perspective. That's it. I'm done.
Pam, would it be all right for me to make a motion that you go ahead and write that letter?
Well, sure, I was hoping you'd offer, Guy, though.
I'll second it.
You just gave a wonderful presentation with all that, so.
Yeah.
Um,
Pam, there was a period before the university took over the Ridges that they had a nonprofit called ACURC, Athens County Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation. It was 2 or 3 years trying to get other people to preserve it. I was on that board for a while. It was awful. It was terrible. And I was thrilled when the university took it over because nobody else was about to put that kind of money into preservation that they did. So I think it's a great idea.
And you're absolutely right. It was terrible. And the university was the only body that could have taken that over. Absolutely the only one. And I was there with Chuck Culp in 1988, walking the land going, holy macaroni. And Chuck's going, oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? But it's exciting and thrilling, and we got a crisis. And the crisis is not, I don't want to stress it too much, but you know how that goes. We can lose it. We can lose those wings if we're not squeaky. We need to be squeaky.
I second Guy's motion. I think it's a great thing to thank them for what they've done.
Yes. All in favor?
Well,
Aye.
well, I wanted to.
Comments, first of all?
Yes, may I think I favor, I don't know what the motion, I mean, someone's going to draft a letter. I'm all for, I think the roofs need to be fixed, obviously, and it's an important historical project. I would point out, as one who has been dealing with the university on financial matters lately, the university is in desperate financial state now. They're not merely having a bad year, they're having a catastrophe of a year.
Right.
They're going to be letting off hundreds more employees. They're running deficits right now in the tens of millions. So I'm not saying I do like the approach. Pam's approach is exactly right. We should stress all the positive things you've done and say, we hope you can find a way to deal with this problem in spite of all of your, fiscal anxieties at the moment, something along those lines. Without knowing the exact extent of the amount, nor the extent of what the university is going to have to do. If it means we're going to let 25 people go in the community to fix a roof on a building that hasn't been used for 30 years, 20 years, 30 years, there'll be a lot of people in the community against it. I still favor doing this. I just want you to I'm trying to put a little realism into this is what I'm saying.
And Rich, this is essentially thanking them for their past.
I like that.
To continue to keep a dialogue, to find ways to the future, to restoration.
That's the way it should be done. Yes, exactly.
Is there any opportunity for a grassroots, and Mark, I'm looking at you right now. I'm not looking at you right now. Wait till I move my screen and I'll look at you.
Look at Mark.
There you are. Mark, I'm looking at you right now. Is there a way for a grassroots effort specifically to address the roofing situation of 234 to occur? End of question.
You mean like a capital campaign or something like that, Pam, or? or
That would-
like an advocacy position?
No, capital, money, 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 money.
Rich, what do you know about the capital resources available in the state budget now, not specifically university?
I'm on the committee, I'm on a governor's committee that we will be coming up with a budget for the state in January, which will be voted on by the legislature about the 1st of February. The state's finances, by the way, are not as in bad shape as you might think they are. They're actually ahead of where they were last year on sales tax revenues, for example. A lot depends on federal assistance too. Who knows what's going to happen there? No one knows. So there's that. Mark, that contingency. Another thing that someone mentioned, capital campaign. I would point out the university has not announced this, but I know that the advancement office is gearing up to begin the university's next capital campaign. And maybe, I'm just thinking out loud here, it might be worth talking to Nico Karagosian, the vice president for advancement, and say, don't you think as part of that capital campaign, we ought to have X number of dollars in there to save the word save the ridges is probably a little melodramatic, but something along those lines. We should preserve and beautify the ridges. There ought to be X number of dollars in a capital campaign. Now that's the kind of thing which is separate from the normal year-to-year budget, where I think the university might be more receptive. I'm not speaking for the university. In fact, most of the people in the university wish I would go away, but that strikes me as a possibility, Mark.
And Rich, is the state more receptive to a funding idea for capital dollars if there is some agreement to match it from what the university would do?
I can't speak authoritatively on that, Mark. It strikes me from my political knowledge and experience that matching is always a plus politically, but whether it's an imperative or not, I don't know. I think it's a big help.
I will, if I can do this technologically, I will send you all via email. Oh, Paul, you can help me. I'll send to Paul via email these 4 photographs of the failing roof. It's Bridges. It might be an incentive for your brainstorming, guys. Is that okay, Paul? Will you help me? Put your microphone on.
Absolutely.
Pam,
Thank you.
I just want to ask, you said buildings 2, 3, and 4. Do you mean attached to the ridges, sections 2, 3, 4? Or? And I don't
Correct,
know.
Mary Ann. Yeah.
I want you to all acknowledge that when the university took over the ridges, that Chuck, I was in my 30s, I think. Chuck asked me to number the buildings up there, and so I did. And we're living with those numbers to this day. And there is a little bit of illogic in these things. Buildings 2, 3, and 4. The museum is building 1. That's correct. Buildings 2, 3, and 4 are the attached wings that step away from the museum, but are contiguous with the museum and one another.
Well, I'm certainly happy how you did that, but I hope you don't need to keep those numbers just like that, because it certainly is a waste for fundraising, naming rights, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's an idea. We could do the Snyder wing and the Phillips wing.
When I'm dead.
Well, I don't
Sometime
want that.
soon.
Better building.
That's it, I think, for the ridges. I'm just really tickled pink about the use of the land, though, that we're still keeping it open. And well, oh, the other thing maybe you'd be interested in is that Nico has been trying to, and there's no, not Nico, there's the real estate guy, Dominic. I think it's,
Dominic.
yeah,
Dominic Brook.
Right. He's been working on trying to get public-private partnerships for development of the wings 2, 3, and 4, and they've gone through a lot of permutations on RFQs and RFPs and all sorts of advertisements, and they've come up empty-handed. The return on investment for developers, given what the university is willing and able to provide, is not strong enough for a developer to dive into those wings. I did that when I was the university planner several times and always came up empty-handed. So I don't think we need to go down that road again right now.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. So Pam, you're going to get some information to us, and then we won't write a letter now from everyone.
I am going to write a letter. There was a motion on there for me to write a letter, and Mark seconded it. I don't know whether you guys want to vote on it or not. For me to draft a letter to present for you.
Okay, I thought Guy was going to write it. Okay, if you're going to write, Pam.
I want Guy to do it. I want Guy to write that letter, but no, I'm going to do it. I'll do it.
Okay, that's good. So shall we vote on this, or?
Sure.
Okay. We've all heard this opposition. Is everyone in agreement with this?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, good. Then this motion carries. Pam, we'll be waiting for it. Thank you.
Hey, Pam, I noticed, I think that meeting we have, I'm serving on the Ridges Advisory Committee while Andy Stone's been deployed in his absence. It looked to me like it's scheduled for 8 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a public meeting or not. I'll ask, and if so, I'll make sure I'll send out a link to the meeting to all of you in case you were interested in attending it. Do you know, Pam?
I don't know if it's public. I just know I'm
Not
going
sure.
to try and be awake by 8 o'clock and maybe dressed at least from the waist up.
I could call you. I'm usually up about 5 if you want, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another item for new business, and that's the Pilcher House. So, there was a long article in the local newspaper a few days ago about the Pilcher House, and I lost the been recycled by mistake. So, does anyone know anything about this? What's going on?
Did I forward? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say I've received a few notices. I thought I forwarded one to all of you,
Yes.
but maybe I did not. That I believe it's up for silent bids or something like that. I think this week, maybe the 18th.
Yeah, I think it is. You're right.
But I don't know much about it other than that.
I heard a rumor from my husband. It might have heard it from Reeser, maybe Traxler, and he said that a person was interested in putting in a bid, and that the person wanted to renovate the building and make it into their office. And I don't know who the person was, but I thought, well, wouldn't that be a happy solution to the situation if that happens? David also said it would be very difficult if someone were to tear down that building. By the time you did the code work, which may or may not include us. I don't know, Marianne, if Pilcher's part of our territory or not.
That's
No,
not
but
part
we
of
could
our
comment.
jurisdiction.
We can comment anyway.
Well, that's true. But it would be very challenging to, build much there. It's not a very big piece of real estate, I think. JB, you might know. And, but, it could always be a parking lot. Just saying.
This is interesting because I heard a rumor a couple of years ago about a local businessman property. So I'm hoping it's the same person and that he does buy it. So we'll see what happens.
I heard rumors also along the same lines that there are one or two people interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great location.
I think that's great. So any other comments? So the bid is coming up, this week is supposed to happen, or?
It says sealed bids are State of Ohio Department of Administrative Services will conduct a public sealed bid auction of state-owned property on Friday, December 18th, 2020 at 3 p.m.
Woo-hoo.
Well, maybe we'll find out. So
It could be beautiful. Could be a beautiful office. I walked around it after I got your email, Paul, because way back, like the early '80s, I had my office in the Beckley building, and Mike Ward and I wanted to take a long-term 50-year lease from the university because they didn't want to sell it, but we would have to renovate it, and the cost was really, really high. And from walking around it, it'll still be really, really high. But it could be a really beautiful office for someone who wanted a downtown office.
It'd be a great law office. It'd be a great law office. In fact, I think someone like Bob Toy ought to buy it.
Absolutely.
yes, I agree.
A lot of tax credits available on a property like that.
That's right.
Especially if it's not in university's hands.
If that's the case, then one of us should take on the responsibility, and I think it should be Guy, because I want to pick on him today, that take on the responsibility of finding out what happens at the bid on Friday, and then right away contacting that person saying, there are a lot of advantages to historic restoration or preservation or adaptive reuse or whatever the hell you want to call it to make it potable. And that maybe our committee could help you with accessing that or finding out about it. And we'd be more than happy to do it. And congratulations. How about that, Guy? Will you?
I know my wife has plans for me to get into the car and leave town at 1:00. And is that bid opening at 3:00? Where is that?
Yeah, I'll forward you the information I have.
I know. I looked at it because, quite frankly, I was like, heck, I should at least try to put something in myself.
Oh, yeah.
You need to contact ODAS Real Estate Office for more details about the auction. Yeah.
Guy, that'd be great if you'd be interested in it.
Yeah, the Phil Pilcher house. I like that.
Well, no, it's that one building with the fire. That was a total disaster. I'm not very good at that. This is it's bigger than I can handle, probably. But I was planning on finding out more about it, so.
Well, if you're not going to be here, is there somebody else in the group that will be willing to do that?
Well, I'm not saying I won't do it. I just have to find out if I can do that and stay married. My wife said we're leaving at 3 or at 1.
All right. Well, it's Friday soon, so.
Yes.
Does somebody want to sort of say they'd be second anyhow?
How would you find it out? How would you find out about it?
I'm just going to call the guy up and find out. I mean, there's places you're supposed to submit your bids, but that really isn't in the information.
Oh, okay.
And you could call this Dominic at the university.
Yeah, Dominic would know.
Okay. Okay.
He's the real estate guy. What's his last name?
Brooke.
Rich?
Dominic, it's the Brooke. It's the people who his wife is the one who runs the Appalachian, Ohio group in Nelsonville, Foundation for Appalachian, Ohio, and Dominic Brooke.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is announcements and updates. Does anyone have anything to add to this? Announcements or updates?
What's the status of the certificate of whatever that is, appropriateness of whatever?
Pam, I don't have a great update other than that our code office is working on it. I provided with them what Mary Ann gave about, she recommended the template that the city of Cincinnati uses, and they put that into their system. They've got maps, etc. I wanted to follow up in the minutes from last month. I said I would reach out to Ohio History Connection about providing a training for the preservation board to help, especially as we get started with this responsibility. And I apologize, I haven't done that yet.
Okay, I just didn't know where the ball was. Thank you very much, Paul.
Yep.
Yes, thank you very much. So, anything else anyone has to add? I think we're ready for adjournment. So, happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see you all in January.